Changing up the talent working on a project before it's in production isn't unusual in Hollywood, but it has been appearing that Disney's been doing this an awful lot lately, at least in the recent past, kind of as if they're just scrambling to try to fix something because they almost foresee that there's going to be a problem with it. More recently, we've seen this happen with the new Star Wars series Lando, where they replaced the writer of it after it was already announced who was doing it because they gave him responsibility to direct their new Haunted Mansion movie. And as we can see in the box office, it's just a huge bomb for them. So it makes sense that Disney would not want to keep them around and actually do more with them when they're just worried, like, well, when they did give him something to do, he just failed at it. And that's where we're getting to this news story right now. So coming from Bounded in the Comics, Quantumanium and Loki writers reportedly removed from Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars movies. A new rumor claims that both Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumanium writer Jeff Loveness and Loki writer Michael Waldron have been removed from working on the upcoming Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars films. Now, this kind of makes sense from what I was previously saying because Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumanium was a huge bomb for the company. But on the other side, you see Loki, which that was actually pretty successful, at least according to the numbers that they're saying and according to third-party numbers. But you got to keep in mind, you don't actually know what the third-party numbers are, at least how they go about them. And a lot of times people are saying that they're inflated. And the numbers that Disney gives us on Loki is obviously just what they're saying. So we just kind of have to take their word for it. So at the same time, we don't know how successful it is, even if it does do pretty good for them. I mean, it seems unusual that the movie did good, the show did good, and they're like, we're going to give the writer of that a new movie, and then all of a sudden they replace the writer of that. I mean, to me, it indicates like, well, why would you replace him if you were happy with the results of that? I mean, that kind of suggests that Loki isn't as good as what they're letting on, but the fact that they're pushing through with the second season of it just kind of makes me lead to believe that, well, maybe they don't like what it did, but at the same time, it's vital for setting up the future of the MCU, so they kind of have to pursue it. And if they have to pursue it with a new creative behind it, well, then that's just what they're going to do right now. But either way, like I said, I don't know because it is their streaming service. You don't know the numbers of that. But when we do know the numbers, like with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumanium, we know it wasn't good. Back in October, it was revealed by Deadline that Loki and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness writer Michael Waldron had been tapped by Marvel Studios to write Avengers Secret Wars. In fact, Deadline noted in March 2023 that Waldron even renewed his deal with Disney and Marvel Studios despite CEO Bob Iger noting the poor quality of Marvel Studios' recent outings. The outlet had previously reported that Loveness would write Kang Dynasty in September 2022. So keep this part in mind, that Bob Iger was actually noting even at the time that he didn't like someone doing it who was actually not doing too great for them, which honestly, as a CEO, that seems like a pretty sensible thing to say. Like, hey, this person's not doing good. Why are we going to keep them around? I mean, and a lot of the times these writers are stuck around because the fact that they're just favorable amongst someone in the executive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're talented or their quality. I mean, a lot of the times when you hear about these rumors with good writers or good filmmakers coming into Marvel, especially, they're usually turned off by the way the executives handle things because they basically want to control everything. And if you have a talented writer or a talented director, they don't want to work under the thumb of someone else. They want to be, I don't know, give them some freedom to do what they can do. And the ones who do stick around, they're really kind of hamstrung. I mean, maybe like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a prime example. I mean, you got a great director like Sam Raimi on it, but I mean, if you watch it, I mean, it really doesn't look like Sam. I mean, maybe there's a few moments where it has his influence in it, but for the most part, it's just stereotypical MCU, and he doesn't give anything to work with on that. I mean, he's obviously just doing what he's told to collect the paycheck for it, which is kind of sad. I mean, you should really let these creatives actually do their job as opposed to having the executives who aren't creatives, the ones basically dictating what happens. So yeah, going down into the article even further, it appears both of them might be out of their duties if the latest rumor is to be believed. This latest rumor comes from Scooper My Time to Shine H on X or Twitter. The user posted, no screenwriter will be hired for Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars until the strikes are over, but it should be Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, and those are the ones who wrote the Spider-Verse movies, and I can see why they say that. I mean, they actually come across it. 280 variations of Spider-Man, 95 of which are unique and named characters, plus the villains, the action scenes, character development, humor, drama, romance, and of course the concept of the multiverse. They're perfect. And this is what struck people as strange when he said no writers are announced for those movies until after the strike is over. And that was even questioned about it. So you're saying Loveness and Waldron are off Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars? Yes, they replied. And this isn't the only person that's actually saying this. This was also previously reported. Is it true that Loveness and Waldron are off Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars? Casey Walsh, another scooper, reported, yeah, from what I've heard. So that's the thing. We don't, this is rumors from two scoopers who claim to have sources, so we don't know how accurate it is. But like I said, with the whole Lando thing, we've seen them do the similar thing in the past. And it should be noted that how they actually said from My Time to Shine H, said it's talking about they're not going to hire anyone until the writer strike is over, which is something funny because with the writer strike, a lot of studios have been using that as kind of an excuse to call the writers that they've already worked out deals with, because there was terms within the contracts if there's things that go wrong, like force majeure, which is in something in their contracts. I mean, it can be kind of confusing, but essentially it means if there's an act of God that prevents the production to move forward, then they can basically pull out of the deal without any I don't know, any penalties for the studio. And a lot of them are actually taking that as a sign of like, well, with these strikes going on, maybe they hired people that they had buyer's remorse for. I mean, we already said previously with Bob Iger, he was kind of skeptical about some of the writers that they're hiring on after Ant-Man and the Wasp failed. So maybe they're looking at the writer's strike and be like, well, we weren't really sure about him anyway, and now we kind of have another time to second guess it, and they're seeing other bombs coming out from the MCU, so maybe they're thinking, we need to change course, so maybe we'll start with getting rid of people who we've already had deals with. So that would make sense that they're going to be doing this sort of thing and try to change course. In fact, Bob Iger has even said that they want to change course by maybe reducing the budgets or maybe reducing the number of MCU projects that they have coming out, or just kind of take a step back and actually, instead of just trying to produce as much as they can, as fast as they can, basically take a more economical approach to it, especially since the studio has been losing money hand over fist this last year at the box office, and then they're also been losing at the parks. Their stock is at like a 9-year low. So I would understand why they would be getting rid of these writers and basically try to bring someone else in who they think could actually better flesh out these projects. But as long as the studio is going to be doing what they've been doing, which is basically try to really have a very hands-on approach from the executives, I think there's going to be a problem. Now, what they should do is what they did in the early stages of the MCU, where you may basically get talented writers and directors. I mean, and you maybe give them some outlines, like these are some points that you need to hit because this is kind of where the whole MCU is going in the future. So you need to make sure you just hit like these points, like we're like basically at the end, these characters have to be alive, and maybe you touch on these few things, but for the most part, the writers have their say in what, and they have control about what's going on, and the directors have control about how they're going to execute that. And by doing that, not only does it actually, you better utilize the talents of the people that you're bringing on, but it also maybe makes more individual movies have an individual feel, as opposed to everything just feeling like the latest MCU movie, because they're all basically being churned out by the executives at the studio. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you think these rumors are to be believed, or do you think it's just something that people are talking about and nothing to be taken serious? I mean, I think it seems reasonable, but let me know what you think. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.